My name is Marvin Caldwell. I'm 64, retired electrical engineer, widower. I live alone in Scottsdale, Arizona, and up until last November, I was writing checks every single month to support my daughter and the man she planned to marry. That ended on a Wednesday afternoon, and it ended because of a phone call I never saw coming. The call came in at 3:47 p.m. I was sitting at my desk at home going through some old utility contracts, just routine paperwork. My phone rang, not Rachel, Burton Norris, her fiancé. That was the first thing that was off. He never called me directly. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, real calm, real deliberate. "Rachel and I have decided that this year's Thanksgiving is just for our generation. We're keeping it to people our age. You're not included." I pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at the screen like I'd misheard him. I hadn't. "Put Rachel on," I said. He said she was busy. I sat there for a second after he hung up. Then my phone buzzed. Text from my daughter. "Dad, Burton thinks you need to learn to respect our space. Maybe someday you'll earn back your place at our table." Earn back my place. I set the phone down on the desk and didn't move for a while. Outside the window, the sun was already dropping. That amber light you get in Scottsdale in November was coming through the blinds in long, flat lines across the floor. I picked up the phone again, opened my banking app, went to the recurring payment screen. I'd set all of this up so long ago it had just become background noise. I hadn't really looked at the list in months. Rent on their Mesa apartment, $1,800. The lease was in my name. I'd signed it before Burton was even in the picture, back when Rachel first moved to the Valley and needed a place while she got her freelance design work going. The lease had renewed twice since then, and nothing had changed. Car lease for Rachel's Highlander, $420. My name on that contract too. Health insurance, still on my plan, $380. She was getting her business off the ground, she'd said. That was 2.5 years ago. Monthly living allowance I'd set up after her mother died, $600. I'd started that one on my own. Nobody asked me to. I just didn't want Rachel to be struggling while she was grieving. Supplemental credit card, I'd added her to $450 average each month. Total $3,650 every single month. And that wasn't counting the $18,000 I'd wired to them last February. Burton had called it a bridge loan in 3 separate text messages. I had 0 paperwork on it, just his texts and my wire transfer record. I stared at that list for a long time. Then I opened the family group chat, typed one sentence. "Thanks for letting me know. Canceling all automatic payments today." Sent it. Left the group. I put the phone face down on the desk and started working through the list. The mortgage on their apartment first, then the car lease portal, then my insurance provider, then the bank for the credit card. Each one took a few minutes. Log in, navigate, confirm. I'd set all of this up carefully over the years, so I knew exactly where everything lived. About 40 minutes in, I picked the phone back up. 95 missed calls. Rachel, Burton, numbers I didn't recognize. I set it face down again and finished what I was doing. When I was done, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table in the quiet. I want to explain something because I know how this looks from the outside. It looks like a man who lost his temper and blew up his family over a dinner invitation. That's not what happened. My wife Carol died 7 years ago. She'd been sick for 2 years before that, and during those 2 years, I was not as present as I should have been. I kept working. I told myself she needed the stability, that the bills didn't stop, that the best thing I could do was keep everything running. I believed that. But when she was gone, I had to sit with the fact that I'd missed a lot of the time I could have had with her. I turned that guilt into a checking account. Every problem Rachel had after Carol died, I solved it with money. New city, tough month, car trouble, rent gap, it didn't matter. I wrote the check. And when Burton came along, I extended that to him without thinking too hard about it, because he was going to be family, and that's what I understood family to mean. What I didn't see was that I'd trained them both to look right through me. I'd made myself invisible and indispensable at the same time. I was a number on a bank statement, useful as long as I was funding things, and apparently not worth a seat at the Thanksgiving table the moment I wasn't. The text from Rachel made that clear. "Maybe someday you'll earn back your place at our table." I'd been paying $3,650 a month and I hadn't earned my place yet. I let that sit in the quiet kitchen for a long time. Then I went to bed. The next morning I made some calls. The first call I made Thursday morning was to Edwin Pierce. He was a property and contract attorney with an office in Old Town Scottsdale. A colleague had recommended him a year back. Good reviews, no connection to my family, exactly what I needed. I drove over at 10 a.m. with a folder of documents I'd pulled together the night before. The apartment lease, the car lease, bank statements going back 24 months showing every recurring transfer. and 3 text messages from Burton where he'd used the word loan explicitly when referencing the $18,000. Edwin was maybe 47, wore reading glasses, didn't waste time. He spread everything across his desk and read carefully. I watched him work through the lease first, then the car contract, then the bank records, then the texts. He made notes, didn't say much until he was done. "Your position is very clean," he said. "The apartment lease is in your name. You are the primary lessee. You can issue a notice to vacate with 30 days, which is standard under Arizona law. The vehicle is the same situation. You're the contract holder. You can initiate termination through the leasing company directly. And the $18,000, he held up the printed texts. These are useful. He used the word loan 3 times across these messages. Combined with your wire transfer record, you have the foundation for a civil claim. It's not airtight without a signed agreement, but it's workable." I asked him to proceed on all 3 fronts. He quoted me a retainer. I wrote the check before I left. But there was one more thing I needed to show him. Before any of this had started, I'd noticed something strange. A piece of mail had arrived at the Mesa apartment address, forwarded to me because the lease was still technically in my name for billing correspondence. It was addressed to something called Norris Property Solutions LLC. I looked it up. The LLC was registered in Arizona. The registered address was the Mesa apartment, my property. Over the following week, 2 more pieces of mail came to the same address for the same LLC. One appeared to be a bank statement. The other was correspondence with a vendor. I put all of it on Edwin's desk. He looked at it for a long moment. "He registered a business entity at your address without your knowledge or consent. That's what it looks like. Do you know if this LLC has been filing taxes?" I didn't know, but I'd already started looking into it, and what I'd found suggested the LLC had been active for at least 14 months. Edwin leaned back. "You need to document every piece of mail connected to this, photograph it, keep the originals. There are proper channels for reporting address misuse that may have tax implications. I can point you in the right direction." He did. I followed those directions exactly. I filed the appropriate reports with the IRS and provided copies of everything I had. I didn't editorialize. I just laid out the facts and let the documentation speak. That afternoon, I drove home and sat at my kitchen table and thought about Burton Norris. 32 years old, no stable employment that I'd ever seen, called himself a real estate investor. In 14 months, I'd never seen any evidence of a deal closing, but I'd seen my $18,000 disappear into what he described as operating costs. And now I was finding out he'd been running a business entity out of my property without telling me. Rachel had met him at a networking event 3 years ago. She thought he was ambitious. I thought he was a man who had learned how to live well on other people's resources. I'd kept that opinion to myself because she was happy, and I didn't want to be the father who drove his daughter away by criticizing her choices. That restraint had cost me $3,650 a month, plus an $18,000 wire transfer, plus whatever exposure the LLC situation created. I thought about Carol. We'd been married 31 years. She died at 59, which felt like a thing that shouldn't be allowed to happen to someone that's steady and decent. After she was gone, I had this hollow feeling that I'd failed her in the years when she was sick, that I'd prioritized the wrong things, that all my practicality and work ethic had added up to absence when she needed presence. Rachel became the way I tried to fix that. I couldn't fix what I'd done wrong with Carol, so I poured everything I had into making sure Rachel was okay. Every month, every check, every covered expense was me trying to make up for something I couldn't undo. Burton had figured that out, maybe not consciously, but he'd figured out that I was a man carrying guilt, and that guilty men with resources don't say no. He'd built a comfortable life on top of that knowledge. The eviction notice went out by courier the following Thursday morning. Edwin's office confirmed delivery at 10:47 a.m. Rachel called me 4 times in the next 2 hours. Burton called twice. I let all of it go to voicemail. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table and listened to Rachel's messages. She was crying in the first one, confused in the second. Burton's messages were different, clipped, controlled. He said I was making a serious mistake and that he had options. I saved every voicemail to a folder on my laptop, labeled it clearly with the date and time. Then I went to bed. The Friday after the eviction notice, I initiated the vehicle termination. The Highlander lease was in my name. I'd signed it when Rachel needed reliable transportation after Carol died. She'd been borrowing my truck for months, and I just went down to the dealership and put her in something decent. My name, my credit, my monthly payment. That was 3 years ago. I contacted the leasing company in writing, citing the termination clause in the contract. Gave them the required notice. They scheduled a pickup for the following Friday morning at 8 a.m. I had a doorbell camera at the Mesa apartment. I'd installed it back in October when I first started thinking clearly about what I was dealing with. It was my lease, my property, my legal right to have it there. I I watched the pickup on my phone from my kitchen table in Scottsdale. The flatbed arrived at 8:04. The driver was a stocky guy in a gray uniform with a clipboard. He knocked on the apartment door first as a courtesy. Rachel answered in a robe. I turned up the audio on my phone. She told him he couldn't take the car. He showed her the paperwork. She told him the car was hers. He explained calmly that the lease was held by Marvin Caldwell and that Mr. Caldwell had submitted a valid termination request per the contract terms. Burton appeared behind her in the doorway. He came down the steps and stood in front of the Highlander with his arms crossed. The driver didn't argue with him. He made a phone call, spoke quietly for about 2 minutes, then walked back and handed Burton a card, told him any disputes needed to go through the leasing company's legal department. Burton stared at the card. Rachel was saying something to him I couldn't make out. He stepped aside. The driver gave them 5 minutes to remove personal items from the vehicle. Rachel pulled out a gym bag, some reusable shopping bags, a jacket. Burton stood in the driveway with his arms crossed and didn't help her. Then the Highlander went up on the flatbed and drove away. Rachel stood in the driveway holding her things. Burton turned and went back inside without saying anything to her. I closed the camera app and finished my coffee. My phone started getting texts from numbers I didn't recognize that same afternoon. Burton had apparently figured out I'd blocked him and was using other people's phones. The messages ranged from accusations to threats of legal action to, toward the end of the day, something that was almost a plea. I read each one, screenshotted it, added the number to my block list, and moved on. That evening, Phyllis Holt called me. She'd been Carol's closest friend for nearly 30 years, the kind of person who shows up at a funeral and then keeps showing up for years after. She'd heard from Rachel. She scared Marvin, Phyllis said. She should have said something before she sent that text. Did you really cancel everything? I did. Phyllis was quiet for a moment. What did the text say exactly? I read it to her word for word. Maybe someday you'll earn back your place at our table. She didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then send me a screenshot. I did. She called back about 20 minutes later. Her voice was different. Quieter. I didn't know it had gotten like this. Rachel told me you just cut them off out of nowhere. I've been paying $3,650 a month for 3 years. I wired Burton $18,000 in February. I was not invited to Thanksgiving. That's the whole story. I believe you, she said. I'll talk to Rachel. A week after the eviction notice went out, Burton made his next move. He posted on Facebook, public post, said I was evicting my own daughter with no warning, that I'd cut off a young couple trying to build their future, that he didn't understand how a father could do this. The post got shared around. A few people who knew me from my years at the engineering firm sent me messages asking if everything was okay. I didn't post anything. I didn't respond publicly at all. What I did was send screenshots of Rachel's text and a simple one-page summary of the payments I'd made with dates and amounts to 2 colleagues I'd known for over 20 years. I kept the message short. I told them I wasn't going to discuss it publicly, but wanted them to have the facts. That was enough. People who knew me could make their own judgments. People who didn't know me were going to believe whatever story felt most satisfying. I wasn't going to spend energy on either group. 2 weeks later, around the middle of December, Rachel sent something to my email. Not a message. An attachment. It was a photo, an old one, the 3 of us at the Grand Canyon the summer before Carol got sick. Rachel must have been 21 or 22. Carol was laughing at something off camera. I was standing between them with my hand on Rachel's shoulder. The subject line said, "Do you remember this?" I looked at that photo for a long time. Carol's laugh, Rachel's sunburned nose, my own younger face looking like a man who had no idea what was coming. I felt something shift in my chest. Not enough to change anything, but enough to remind me that this wasn't simple and that I'd never wanted it to be this way. I saved the photo to a folder. Did not reply. 30 days after the eviction notice landed, I got a text from Edwin. They vacated. Confirmed this morning. I drove to the Mesa apartment the morning after Edwin confirmed they'd cleared out. Used my key. The door swung open into silence. The place smelled like cleaning products and that particular emptiness that furnished spaces have when the people are gone but the marks they left aren't. I walked through each room slowly. They'd made an effort. The kitchen was wiped down. The bathrooms were clean. But in the hallway there were gouges in the drywall where something large had been dragged out without care. A dark stain on the living room carpet near the window, coffee or red wine set in too deep to lift. A curtain rod pulled halfway out of the wall in the second bedroom. I photographed everything, sent the photos to Edwin. He told me the same thing he'd said before, document it but don't pursue it. Going after them for carpet damage would look petty. I'd made my point. Let them go. He was right. I locked the door and left. That same week, I called Gloria Stafford, a property manager and leasing agent who specialized in residential rentals in the East Valley. She came by, walked the unit, told me what repairs were needed and what the current rental market looked like in Mesa. We agreed on a monthly rate. She had a qualified tenant with references within 3 weeks. Signed lease, first and last month's deposit, everything done through proper channels. The unit that had been costing me $1,800 a month was now generating $1,650 a month in rental income. The math had completely reversed. In February, Edwin sent a formal demand letter to Burton for the $18,000 certified mail, documented delivery. Burton did not respond. Edwin filed a civil claim in small claims court. Burton showed up to the hearing, which I had not expected. He argued the money was a gift, said I'd offered it voluntarily to help them get established, said there was never any agreement to repay. Edwin had the texts. 3 separate messages where Burton had used the word loan, one where he'd written, I'll pay you back by end of Q3, appreciate the patience. The judge read them twice. Burton's claim that it was a gift did not survive contact with his own written words. The judge ruled in my favor, full amount plus filing fees. Burton had 90 days to pay or face wage garnishment. He didn't pay. Wage garnishment was initiated in April. The IRS situation moved on its own timeline. I didn't track it closely. I'd filed what I found through the proper channels in November, provided my documentation, and left it there. In March, a piece of forwarded mail arrived at my address for Norris Property Solutions, LLC. It was an audit notice. I forwarded it to Edwin for the file and didn't think much more about it. That process belonged to the IRS now, not to me. What I did think about was Rachel. Phyllis had been checking in on her every couple of weeks. She kept me loosely updated, not in a way that felt like reporting, more like she wanted me to know Rachel was okay without making it into a negotiation. Rachel had moved in with a friend in Tempe. She was picking up more freelance work. She'd stopped asking Phyllis to intervene on her behalf, which Phyllis said felt like progress. In late February, Phyllis told me that Burton had moved out. He'd apparently decided that the situation, no job, no car, no free apartment, an IRS audit, and a court judgment against him, was not one he wanted to stay for. He left for somewhere in Nevada. Rachel hadn't heard from him since. I sat with that for a while. I didn't feel satisfied exactly. I felt like I was watching the natural conclusion of something that had always been going to end this way. Burton had built his life around access to other people's resources. When that access was removed, there was nothing holding him to anyone. Rachel had spent 3 years building her life around a man who'd been doing the same thing to her that he'd been doing to me, using her the way he'd used me. The difference was she'd had to live with him. Phyllis asked me one evening in March if I'd considered reaching out to Rachel directly. I told her I didn't know yet. She's not asking you to fix anything, Phyllis said. She just wants to know you're still there. I thought about the photo Rachel had sent. The Grand Canyon, Carol laughing, Rachel's sunburned nose. I thought about Carol's voice telling me once years before she got sick that my biggest problem was that I confused being reliable with being present. You show up with your checkbook, she'd said, but you don't always show up with yourself. She'd been right about that. And I'd spent 7 years after her death trying to correct it in exactly the wrong way, throwing more money at the problem, becoming more reliable and less present than ever. I told Phyllis I'd think about it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the folder of documents I'd kept through all of this. The lease, the car contract, the texts, the court judgment, the IRS forwarded mail, the photo Rachel had sent. I'd kept them all in the same folder without really thinking about why. I looked at the photo again for a long time, then I closed the folder and went to bed. April came in, warm. Scottsdale in spring has a short window before it turns brutal. And I'd gotten into the habit of sitting on my terrace in the evenings with a glass of iced tea and just letting the day settle. I called Rachel on a Tuesday night in the first week of April. No planning, no rehearsed speech. I just picked up the phone and called. She answered on the second ring. Said Dad in a way that sounded like she'd been waiting, but hadn't let herself expect it. We talked for about 40 minutes. Not about Burton, not about the apartment or the car or the eviction. We talked about Carol mostly, about a trip we'd taken to Sedona this summer. Rachel turned 16 when Carol had insisted on hiking a trail none of us were prepared for, and we'd ended up eating gas station sandwiches at the trailhead because we'd missed every restaurant by 2 hours. Rachel laughed telling it, real laughter, not the kind people perform. Before we hung up, she said she was sorry, not in a big production way, just quiet and direct. I should have said something when Burton made that call. I should have called you myself. I told her that was true, and I told her I was glad she said it. We didn't make any plans that night, didn't talk about what came next or what things were going to look like. That felt right. Some things needed to be rebuilt slowly, and pretending otherwise would have been dishonest to both of us. I talked to Phyllis the next morning. She asked how it went. Good, I said. It was a good call. She said Carol would have been relieved. I told her I thought so too. The rental income from the Mesa apartment was coming in clean every month. The court judgment against Burton was in the hands of the garnishment process. Edwin had closed out the active legal work and sent me a final accounting. I'd spent less on attorneys and filings than I'd spent on 4 months of supporting Burton's lifestyle. The math was not close. My retirement accounts had been growing without the monthly drain for 5 months by then. I ran the projections one evening out of habit, the way engineers do, just to see the numbers laid out. The difference over 10 years was significant, real money. The kind that meant options. I thought about what Carol had said, that I showed up with my checkbook but not always with myself. She'd been right, and the thing I hadn't understood until all of this happened was that writing checks had never actually been about Rachel. It had been about me. About managing my own guilt from a distance, about finding a way to feel like a good father without having to sit still long enough to actually be one. Burton hadn't created that pattern, he'd just exploited it. The pattern was already there, built into the years I'd spent working while Carol was sick, and the years after when I'd converted grief and guilt into automatic transfers. Rachel was 29 and starting over in a 1-bedroom in Tempe, picking up freelance contracts, learning what it felt like to cover her own expenses. That was hard. I wasn't glad it was hard, but I knew that what she was building now was hers in a way that the Mesa apartment had never been. I was 64 and sitting on my terrace in the Scottsdale evening, watching the sun go down behind the mountains with a quiet phone and a financial picture that was finally pointing in the right direction. That was mine too. The Burton situation had one more chapter that closed quietly in May. Edwin forwarded me a letter he'd received from Burton's attorney. A single paragraph stating that Burton would not be pursuing further action regarding the eviction or vehicle termination, and acknowledging the outstanding judgment. No apology, no explanation, just a formal acknowledgement that it was over. I read it once, added it to the folder, and closed the folder for the last time. Some things end not with a confrontation, but with a piece of paper in an envelope. That's fine. That's how the law is supposed to work. I called Rachel again the following weekend. We talked for an hour. She'd picked up a new client, a small branding firm that needed ongoing design work. She sounded steadier, more like herself, or at least more like the person she'd been before Burton. We made a plan to have lunch in Scottsdale the weekend after that. Nothing formal, just lunch. I drove there and we sat by the window and talked for 2 hours and split a piece of pie at the end because Carol always said a meal wasn't finished without something sweet. Rachel brought that up herself. I hadn't said a word. That was enough. That was a start. If any part of this story sounds familiar, you already know what I'm talking about. You've written the checks. You've told yourself it was love. You've watched someone take what you gave and expect more. And you've stayed quiet because you didn't want to be the one who broke things. I'm telling you that the thing you're afraid to break is already broken. What you protect by staying quiet is not your family. It is someone else's access to your resources. You're allowed to draw the line. You're allowed to be a father and a man with dignity at the same time. Those two things are not in conflict. If this story meant something to you, hit like and leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. The next story is right there waiting for you.